What's up, folks, and welcome to Indie Ramble. So, I got an important question for you guys. What if Vampire Survivors, but it also looks like Diablo 1? Yeah, okay, that's way too reductionist. This game is actually something a fair bit beyond that. While it wears its inspirations not so much on its sleeve, but more of a full-body tattoo, it also has actually some really cool ideas to this new burgeoning auto shooter genre, and really does some cool stuff that I think is worth talking about. So this is Halls of Torment, and yes, if you are someone who is ancient enough to remember Diablo 1 and how it looked, this does something for you, this art style. It definitely, they did a good job of emulating that. It has that sort of late 90s, early 2000s pseudo 3D pre-rendered kind of vibe going for it, you know? And I think they do a good job with that. But as I said, this is far more than just that. So this is a game in early access, and as we've said before, I don't cover a lot of early access on this channel unless it's what I call early access done right. And I think that's what this one is. This is a game that is launched with a decent amount of content in early access and has a lot more coming and has been getting regular updates and seems to be engaging with their community quite a bit. So I'm confident in covering this because it's already a lot of fun. Honestly, if they stop development here, not saying they should, but if they were to stop development here, I think you would still have a good amount of fun with what's on offer here. So, as you can see right now, this is very much one of these titles. You have an endless swarm of enemies, and your character can shoot, you can shoot manually if you want. I don't really find there's much benefit to that, so I actually have the auto shooting turned on. You can toggle it. You can also toggle auto aiming if you like. This I like less because it doesn't always aim where I think is the best place. And it's basically a twin stick game otherwise, so I like the way that feels, so I choose not to do that, but you have the option either way. So you take out enemies. As you go, there will be more enemies, there will be stronger enemies, and you pick up these little gems that allow you to level up and pick upgrade different abilities or add new abilities to your character for that run. You know, it's very, if you know Vampire Survivors, you know this formula. If you don't know Vampire Survivors, frankly, you should just go play Vampire Survivors, I think.
Each of them demanded a
Let this play here.
In exchange for a fragment of a powerful token. The token of pain, which betrayed its old master and would yield us the power to finally end his atrocious reign.
So as you can tell, this is very Diablo-y style writing in this. You know, it's a very dark storyline with a lot of real, brooding and angst in it. It's kind of what you would expect, and that's fine. So yeah, as you're going to go through this, a lot of what's in here is going to look very familiar. Your runs are 30 minutes long, though what's interesting about this is, in Vampire Survivors, when you reach the end of a 30-minute run, you end up fighting... Not even fighting, really. You end up getting wrecked by a boss enemy that is undefeatable and that will destroy you almost immediately. There's actually an achievement in that game for staying alive for a full minute while that guy is trying to wreck you. This does things a little bit differently. At the end of your run, you actually do fight a boss enemy that I have yet to beat. He is very, very tough, but he is absolutely defeatable. And that's kind of a neat little twist on things. As you saw there at the beginning, you do have multiple characters as well. Now, I've unlocked all the characters currently available in early access, though there are going to be more coming later. And I'll switch between a couple of them so that you can see the differences. They do play very different. Some are more melee focused, some are more range focused. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, and you can compensate for those by how you choose to do your per run build here. Now, what's interesting about this is there are some permanent upgrades that you can unlock as well, almost roguelite style. Now, Vampire Survivors has this too, but this does things a little bit differently, I think, in a way that's kind of interesting. So there's a mini boss enemy. There's plenty of these as well that come out throughout the game. They get progressively harder. Some of them are really tough, actually, and you've got to, you have to manage crowd control while trying to deal with these higher level enemies at the same time. It is a very familiar formula, but it's got that same addictive quality to it. You know, Vampire Survivors, there's been a million clones of it, and most of them are crap, to be frank with you, but there are a few really good ones made by people who understand what makes this click and how to do it properly. So when you take out mini bosses, you can unlock these as well. These are larger scale, sort of automatic area of effect type of abilities that can help control crowds. You don't have control over these, though you can level these up as well by once you unlock one in a run, you will also gain the ability to spend some of your upgrades towards it specifically as well, which is also kind of nice. So you have to learn each class, and you have to learn to crowd control and manage the bosses, and, you know, set your build up in a way that's optimal if you want to get to the end of it. That's kind of the thing. You'll pick up temporary buffs along the way sometimes, and what's also quite a bit more interesting, I think, is this. So you have basically a character card here. And as you can see, there's actually equipment that you can equip. Now, you can find this equipment in your runs itself, but, and I'm going to quit back to the camp here so that you can see this, and I'll pick a different character. Shortly after you start playing, you'll unlock this dude. And what you can do is, if you find items in a run that you really like, that you would like to maintain for later runs, you can bring it back to a well. You may have seen me pass it in my last run there, and send it up. You will lose it for the rest of that run, but it will then be in your item stash here, able to be equipped on characters for each subsequent run, which is really, really cool. And Buddy Guy here that you end up rescuing, the merchant, who kind of looks like Hide the Pain Herald in dwarf form, he has additional things that you can buy and add to the stash as well if you like. So it gives you this neat little push-pull where you can have items that you have to weigh. Do I want it in this run because the run is going well, or do I want to try to get back to the start of the level and send it up so that I can use it later? And you have what are called blessings here. These are permanent buffs that you can get for previous runs. Again, very roguelite-ish. These get increasingly very expensive as they go along, but the nice thing is you can refund them at any time if you want to respec, including just refunding the whole lot, which I think is pretty handy. So and then over here you have what are called quests, and these are things that are tied to achievements. Actually, this game, just like Vampire Survivors, has a shed load of achievements, but they're all tied into gameplay in that they're worth getting because they help advance your actual game. They're not just for bragging rights like achievements usually are. And as you can see here, there's a lot of different things available here. So as you complete these quests, some of which are tied to specific arenas, some of which are tied to specific types of enemies, and some of which are tied to abilities that are more character related. So like these ones here are for completing objectives as a specific class. So as you go through these, you will unlock both achievements, but additional things in the gold. Sometimes, or in the game. Sometimes it's just gold, as you can see here. Sometimes it's different blessings. Sometimes it's new items that you can use. It really is a varied thing, and I really appreciate that personally. And then these are the two. There's only 2 arenas in this right now, but as you can see, there's going to be more. So let's go to the second area here, which has a different environment with different enemies and different bosses in it. You can take any character into these at any time, and you can level up and progress differently. I have personally found that there are certain characters that are better suited to certain arenas, but it is possible to get through them with any of the characters. Now, that's what's kind of interesting, is that there is a lot of variability in here. I did find this game has actually been out for a few months when I'm recording this, and the reason I didn't do a video earlier on, well, there's a few reasons for that, but one of the main reasons was when this first launched in early access, it did feel like there was some balance problems. It did feel like certain classes and certain abilities were very OP. As I said early on, the devs have been updating this regularly, and in my opinion at this point, said as someone who has not put in hundreds of hours into this yet, I think the balance stuff has been ironed pretty well. I'm finding that I can make a good amount of progress with just about any class now, whereas before I found that certain classes, particularly the ranged ones, you just... It was a hard mode, basically. And I kind of didn't like that, because I was like, I don't mind higher difficulty, but I want to be able to have the experience of every class. And that does seem to be what they're aiming for here, which I appreciate. It's that's a good thing. And yeah, I think they absolutely nailed the Diablo 1 aesthetic. You know, you're going to like this or not, probably principally based on if you have memories of the old Diablo games. But I think they did a great job with it. I think it looks good. I think the animations are pretty nice. You know, this is obviously... Vampire Survivors isn't about how it looks. Vampire Survivors is frankly kind of ugly, but it doesn't matter because it's an amazing game. These guys had tried to nail a cohesive aesthetic a little bit more, and I think they did a really good job with that. I mean, the developer of Vampire Survivors has said straight up that he wasn't really an artist. Vampire Survivors was basically his COVID project, and you know, he most of the art that initially came out in that game was stuff he could get for free from like from royalty-free sites and the like. So, but it didn't matter in the end, because you know, looks do not make a good game, nor do they make a bad game. You know, gameplay makes a good game. And this is not the only interesting Vampire Survivors clone to come out, but it's one of the better ones, that's for sure. In a sea of garbage ones, these developers clearly understand what they're making and what you need to do to make one of these interesting, cool, and something that people want to keep coming back to. And I really like the fact that, you know, again, to a certain degree, like Vampire Survivors, they have tied achievements into progression. So an achievement is not just something you go for to say, look, I got all the achievements. It's actually an in-game goal as well that gives you something tangible that makes the game better. And that's great. I think that's a really smart way to use achievements that I wish more devs did. And it justifies the fact that this game has the large number of achievements that it does, because it's important, because each one is an actual tangible goal as well. So smart idea behind that. And really, if you like Vampire Survivors and you want more of that kind of game, if you've wrung every last drop out of Vampire Survivors, which I know a lot of you have, I haven't yet, but I'm getting there, then you should definitely check this out. Even in its current early access state, it's got a good amount of content in it. It would take you a very large number of hours to sort of perfect this and beat everything that it has on offer, and more is coming. And they're clearly working on it. They've been updating it regularly. They've been engaging with their community. They've been taking their feedback to heart. Everything that you should do if you are handling early access properly. And yeah, I'm honestly really impressed with this. When word of this game started going around, I looked at it and was like, I just wanted to know because of the Diablo 1 art style. That was really the only thing I looked at before I went, yeah, I want to try this. Because not too many games are aping that era of retro graphics yet. And as someone who played way more Diablo 1 than I will ever probably be able to admit to, I was like, I gotta see what they've done with this. And they've done good. They really have. I think this is a lot of fun. I do recommend picking it up if you're into the genre. I mean, Vampire Survivors really is the de facto standard. So if you haven't played this genre at all, that's probably where you should start, because it's cheap and it's what set the bar for everybody else. I do think you should start with that. But this is also a really good place to start, especially if you can't get your head around the art in Vampire Survivors, or if you're just looking for another one of those types of games. This has become its own genre now. You know, for a long time, everybody said that back in the day, everybody said that a new first-person shooter was just a Doom clone, or open-world games or Grand Theft Auto clones. A lot of people are saying Vampire Survivors clones. I mean, I've said it once in this video too, but this is really becoming its own thing. It's just a new genre that Vampire Survivors happened to kick off. And I think that's great. We don't get new genres too often that really stick and do something unique and different. And I'm glad to see this. I'm glad to see other devs taking this concept and trying to do cool stuff with it. And I'm glad to see that it hasn't been ruined by crappy developers looking to either cash in or make, you know, an exploitative mobile game version of this concept. You know, this is being made by people who actually have a passion for it and who want to deliver a good experience for a reasonable price, you know. Vampire Survivors also kind of set a bar for these games not being very expensive, which I think could be a problem going forward because games are not cheap to make, and that could be a problem later. If everybody starts to think that one of these that costs more than $5 is not worth it, we may end up seeing what happened to the mobile gaming space, and I don't want that either. But that's a longer problem and a different conversation. But I've been really enjoying this. I'm going to keep playing it through early access. When it does come out of early access, I'll probably do a new video on it then to talk about all the new, you know, where it's ended up between where it started. But this is already a very good package that has a lot of fun and offers a lot of good content and gameplay in it. And like I said, I don't talk about early access much. I don't recommend a lot of early access. But this one I confidently can do. I think even if this game never gets another update and never evolves again, there's still a lot of fun to be had here, and that you'd be very satisfied with it. So yeah, that is Halls of Torment. It is out now in early access. I like it. I think you might like it. If you're into this genre, I'd be very surprised if you don't like it. So give it a crack. I think it's quite good. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. If you liked what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things. Those really do help the channel out a great deal. Leave a comment down below. Tell me not only what you think about this, but what are other newer, you know, auto survival Vampire Survivors clones that have come out that you're interested in. I know there are other good ones out there, and I'd love to hear some of what you guys are thinking of some of the shining examples of this new and burgeoning genre. And as always, you can follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week. I cover other indie games as well as retro stuff over there, including a lot of games that look better on a stream than on YouTube. We have a fantastic little community there, and I'd love to see you be a part of it. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy. And I just unlocked an achievement. Love it.